Welcome back. It's still Wednesday's edition of Morning Ride, and I hope you enjoyed that Vox Pop on the streets of the capital city here in Asaba on the 2027 elections. Well, a lot of people have their reservations, but one thing that we must never give up on is hope. And remember that your PVC is your power. So if you don't have your PVC when the last lap, so you better, take cue from that and go apply for your PVC. Very quickly, we move to our next segment, which is the newspaper review segment. And this morning, the dailies are very packed for us. We have a number of papers here. We have the Vanguard newspaper, we have the Daily Independent newspaper, we have the Daily Sun newspaper, we have the Punch newspaper, we have the Guardian newspaper, we have the Nation newspaper, the Daily Trust newspaper, and of course Nigerian Tribune. Very quickly, we take on our first paper, that is the Vanguard newspaper. And the first headline here says, Reps to answer. Explain why you ignored alert on PIFIPC. And the writers to that story says, demand answers on security lapses. Another writer here says, issue final notice to concerned PDAs to appear. Another writer here says, we rejected PFIPC's request for collaboration. This is by Foreign Ministries. And at the top strip there of the Vanguard newspaper, we have this one that says 21 firms emerge winners in 2025 licensing round. And the writer to that story says FG targets additional 3,000 PBT output with 2026 bid round. And that's on page 20 of the Vanguard newspaper. You might want to know what that story is about. Another story here on page 9 says ECOWAS reaffirms plan to roll out ECO single currency in 2027. Here at the top strip still, OPE leads Nigerians fight against digital fraud. Okay, at the bottom strip here, we have a number of stories. This one here, Nigeria can scale $1 trillion economy on shaky terrain to weak governance. This is by Shetima. Another story here, xenophobia reps seeks compensation as South Africa economy suffers, and that's on page 11. Okay, I think this should be because most businesses in South Africa are owned by Nigerians. Okay, another story here is insecurity. Tinubu approves new army battalion for Kwara, and that's on page 27. And lastly, on the Vanguard, 17 states to experience flooding for 6 days beginning July 21. This is by Nisa as the one. Okay, the next paper we have here is the Daily Independent newspaper. And this one here, FG rejects higher yields, cuts allotment at bond auction. And the writer there says, analysts say decision shows borrowing cost discipline. At the top here, we have this one, coordinated reforms urged to secure future of Nigeria Coca. And at the corner strip here, we have this one that says CBN holds rate at 26.5% as Mid-East tension cloud inflation outlook. And that's on page 29. Another story here says FG gives 90-day deadline to 2025 licensing round winners. The writer there says awards 37 oil gas blocks to 31 firms, and that's on page 7. Okay, This one here, Tinubu reforms paving way for long-term prosperity, says minister, and that's on page 6. NISA warns of imminent flooding in Bauchi, Edo. 15 others urges, the writer there says, urges states to evacuate residents from flood plains. That's indeed so sad. And yes, yesterday was a big day here in Delta State, and the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper says it all, as we see our governor shaking one of the appointees there in person of Brave Onode, shortly after being sworn in as commissioner and member of the State Executive Council at the Government House, Asaba, Delta State, on Tuesday yesterday. Okay, these and many more you can get on the Daily Independent newspaper. Do grab yourself a copy. Our next paper here with us is the Daily Sun newspaper, and the bold headline here says PFIPC, CBN fingers AG on bank account opening. And the writers there say Foreign Ministry confirms rejecting Adeyemi's request for collaboration. And last writer here says Reps panel summons Ribadu. At the top here we have this one that says Atiku's lobbyists submit record on alleged Tinubu's US for future case to Trump Congress. The writer there says furious with FG over 8.05 billion naira appropriation for mosque churches. At the top strip there, xenophobia reps probe losses by Nigerians in South Africa. At the bottom here of the Daily Sun newspaper, raise to recapitalization, 33 injures, insurance may miss July 31 deadline. And the writer there says fear fake news can crash banks, FG warns. Another story here says 2027 appeal court affirms INEC's power to supply to issue guidelines for election. That's on page 4. This one here, NISA issues urgent flood advisory, direct evacuation in 17 states. And lastly here, this one, CBN retains interest rate at 26.5% amid inflation concerns. And the writer there says Naira needs competition, not protection, says Cardoso. Okay, here we have the Punch newspaper, and the first headline here says Reps intensify fake agency probe, gives MDAs 48 hours ultimatum. And the writer there says House Titans lose on MDAs accused of frustrating phantom agency investigation. Another writer here says Bianca Ojukwu summoned as Foreign Ministry honored Tuesday's appointment. The last writer to that story says with why Femi Falana withdrew as Adeyemi's legal representatives. You might want to know what that story is about, so do check the Punch newspaper. At the top strip here, this one says investors shun 13 oil blocks, NUPRC plans fresh bids, and that's on page 16. Another story here says business economists back CBN's 26.5% interest rate decision. That's on page 16. And this one here, flood disaster looms, FG warns 17 states. That's on page 7. At the corner strip here, we have FG floats 729 billion naira power bonds, August 3. That's on page 20. On page 14, Defense Minister denies quitting, threatening court actions. At the bottom strip, Tinubu insecurity, Tinubu okays army battalion for Kwara. This one here, NSCDC bust fake Lagos varsity, rescues 107 students. And lastly, Senate expands safe schools probe to TET funds, NEL fund, and that's on page 14. The next newspaper here is the Guardian newspaper, and the first big headline here says 4 years after 1 billion barrel frontier basin discovery, and says FG shops for investors as NNPC's $3 billion not oil exploration lags. By the corner here, this one says NSCDC uncovers varsity operating 3-bedroom campus in Lagos. Okay, another story, PFIPC probe reps issues ultimatum to MDAs as Falana quits Adeyemi's defense. Another story, safe schools, Senate extends probe into TET fund, NEL fund, OPEC orders, and that's on page 5. This one, NISA warns of flood risk in 13 states, urges immediate evacuation. CBN, another story, CBN pegs interest rate at 26.5% as Middle East tension raises inflation fears. This and many more you can get. And lastly, how OPay powers millions of financial decisions daily. This and many more you can get on the Guardian newspaper. Next is the Nation newspaper. The first big headline says NSA in November later to ministry, PFIPC illegal. The writer there says House panel invites Ribadu, Bianca Ojukwu, Oyedele, and others. At the top strip, CBN stable interest rate to consolidate gains, interest rate retains. Another story here says $500 million World Bank backed a Greek scheme take off. Here, OPay leads Nigerians fight against digital fraud. Okay, and lastly, UK PM to discuss Tinubu's reforms. This one here, First Lady's 2 billion naira appeal to revive Akwete textile production. And this and many more you can get on the Nation newspaper. Here with me is the Daily Trust newspaper. First headline here says NNPCL's 7.1 trillion naira energy security spending faces scrutiny. At the top strip here we have Reps panel summons NSA over Phantom Council. Another story here says Adamawa, Borno, Kaduna, 14 others to experience flood from July 21 to 27. And this one here says why CBN retains interest rate at 26.5%. At the bottom here, we have this one. Sad news, flood sweeps away 2 brothers in Katsina. And that's indeed so sad. Another sad story, security, Tinubu approves new battalion for Kwara. This one here says FG raises 17 shops in Lagos market. Fire raises 17 shops in Lagos markets. Lastly, months to election, opposition parties still battling crisis in Katsina. This and many more you can get on the Daily Trust newspaper. And the last paper here is the Nigerian Tribune. And then the first headline here says PFIPC scandal. Onsa SGF disowned Adeyemi during 2025 inquiry. This is by the Foreign Affairs Ministry. The writer there says reps to meet Minister of Justice, Accountant General today. and that's on page 9. At the top strip here, this one says CBN retains interest rate at 26.5%, and that's on page 6. This one here says outcry over expensive graduation fees. You might want to know what that's about. That's on page 13. Another story here says TED Fund now fund UBEC orders on the searchlight as Senate extend Safe School Initiative probe. At the corner here, another story here says Nigerians GSM Power market to hit $39.5 million in 2026, $37 million by 2035 reports, and that's on page 6. Another story here says Kano, Kaduna, Niger, 14 others at flood risk before July 27, FG warns. And this one here says troops rescue 27 kidnapped victims for adoption in Sokoto. That's on page 17. At the bottom strip here, tension heightens in Anambra as suspected gunmen kill 4 herders of same parents. That's on page 27. On page 21, fresh crisis rocks Ondo Assembly over alleged 44 million or Super Deck funds. Speaker denies allegation, demands evidence. And this one here says Africa now world's hunger's epicenter with 309 million hungry people. And the writers there says World Food Security Report. And on health, eating more beans soars / high blood pressure risk by nearly 30%, and this by study, and that's on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. For more information on those stories, please grab yourself a copy of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper and every other paper making it on the dailies this morning. Or better still, you can go online to know what the stories is about. We'll not get back to the studio, and it's so sad that we are going to be facing flooding. So you might want to know if your state is part of it. And of course, because the raining seasons are here already, it's important to keep warm. And if you have kids as well, do keep them warm. Raining seasons sometimes comes with diseases or sicknesses, especially for children. So if you're a parent, do try to keep your kids warm. And because of the flooding, if you don't have to go out, if it's not compulsory that you should be outside, please stay indoors with your family. And of course, for states that will be facing flooding, it's important that you start making preparations right away to relocate from your present location to a safer place, pending when the rain ceases and the flooding kind of lightens up. Okay, that's that on the papers this morning. Very quickly, we take on our next segment, and that's the interview segment. And this morning we are going to be speaking with Chief Isioma Okonta, the executive assistant to the governor on social investments. Okay, when we come back, we'll probably talk some more. Let's go on the interview right away.